Montana is known across the United States as Big Sky Country due to its vast open prairie lands. But despite this nickname, the state's population is mostly located in the far western Rocky Mountain region of the state. And this is quite unusual because, historically, most population centers typically opted for flatter, easier lands to navigate. So why does so much of Montana's population live in the west, leaving the east feeling pretty empty? We don't talk enough about Montana on this channel, because despite its relatively low population, its geography overall is truly stunning. From the Rocky Mountains and Glacier National Park in the west, to its wide open prairie lands in the east, you'd be hard-pressed to find another state as visually striking. And so, I decided to dedicate a whole video to nothing but Montana. And yes, I know Big Sky Country doesn't only refer to the Great Plains part of the state, but come on, the sky over there is huge. Also, be sure to come back tomorrow for an all-new Around the World podcast episode all about Japan with Patrick Kelly of the YouTube channel Ghost Countries. Every state has a human history before the United States and European colonization, and Montana is no different. The Salish, Kootenai, Blackfeet, Crow, and Northern Cheyenne tribes, amongst others, all lived on the land in Montana for hundreds and thousands of years prior to European exploration. The vast plains, rugged mountains, and abundant wildlife, such as the American bison, provided the resources they needed for fishing, hunting, and gathering. And as we're going to find out, these tribes were also integral to why Montana has such a unique population distribution today. Montana was one of the last states to be fully explored by Europeans due to its remoteness and the harsh weather that existed throughout much of the year. In fact, it wouldn't be until the Lewis and Clark expedition, commissioned by President Thomas Jefferson in 1803, that the region would begin to be mapped. The expedition's journey through Montana opened the door for fur traders who soon followed. The fur trade brought economic opportunities, but also introduced diseases that devastated indigenous populations and led to conflicts over land and resources. The first non-indigenous permanent settlement in what would become Montana wouldn't be established for a few more decades. In 1841, St. Mary's Mission was founded in the region that would become the modern-day town of Stevensville in the far western area. But it would be the discovery of gold in the 1860s that would accelerate the influx of settlers, prospectors, and entrepreneurs to the region. This period was marked by intense conflicts, including the infamous Battle of Little Bighorn in 1876, where the Lakota Sioux and Cheyenne, led by Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse, defeated the U.S. Army's 7th Cavalry under General George Armstrong Custer. Despite this victory, the relentless push of settlers and the U.S. government's policies forced many indigenous tribes onto reservations, severely impacting their lives. Montana's path to statehood was influenced by these rapid changes. As the region's population grew, there was a push for more formal governance. The Montana Territory was established in 1864, encompassing a vast area that included parts of present-day Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho. The territory's economy was primarily driven by mining, agriculture, and the arrival of the Northern Pacific Railway in the 1880s, which connected Montana to the rest of the country and spurred further growth and development. The journey to statehood culminated on November 8, 1889, when Montana was admitted as the 41st state in the United States, 6 days after North and South Dakota, and 2 days before Washington. This achievement was the result of years of political maneuvering and the lobbying efforts of prominent local figures. Throughout its history, Montana has faced challenges related to its rugged geography and harsh climate, but its natural beauty and resources have continued to draw people to the state, and we're going to explore that geography right now. Also, please subscribe if you're enjoying today's video. Montana's physical geography is defined by its striking division between the rugged Rocky Mountains in the west and the expansive Great Plains in the east. This diverse landscape creates a unique blend of natural features, ecosystems, and climatic conditions that epitomize the state. While Montana's nickname is Big Sky Country due to its vast plains, its western portion is dominated by the Rocky Mountains, a major mountain range stretching from Canada to New Mexico. Within the state, these mountains reach their highest point at Granite Peak, which stands at 12,799 feet. The Rockies are known for their jagged peaks, deep valleys, and alpine meadows. Glaciers and snowfields are common in the higher elevations, contributing to the state's river systems. The Continental Divide, which runs through the Rockies, separates the watersheds that drain to the Pacific Ocean from those that drain to the Atlantic Ocean and Gulf of Mexico. Western Montana's mountainous terrain is home to dense forests, including large amounts of lodgepole pine, ponderosa pine, and Douglas fir. These forests support a rich diversity of wildlife such as grizzly bears, mountain lions, elk, and moose. The region's numerous rivers and lakes, including the Clark Fork River, Flathead Lake, and the Bitterroot River, offer important habitats for fish and other aquatic species. This area is also a haven for outdoor recreation, attracting hikers, climbers, and skiers to its scenic landscapes. In contrast, the eastern part of Montana is characterized by the vast expanse of the Great Plains. This region is defined by rolling hills, broad river valleys, and open prairies that stretch as far as the eye can see. The Great Plains are an extension of the central North American grasslands and are primarily composed of grasses and shrubs, providing a stark contrast to the forested mountains of the west. The elevation of the Great Plains gradually decreases from west to east, creating a gently sloping terrain. The eastern plains are crisscrossed by several major rivers, including the Missouri River, Yellowstone River, and the Milk River. These rivers carve out valleys and provide essential water sources for agriculture and wildlife. The Missouri River in particular plays a crucial role in the state's geography, as it flows from the Rocky Mountains through the plains, eventually joining the Mississippi River. Montana's Great Plains support a different array of wildlife compared to the mountainous west. Bison, pronghorn, and deer are common, as are numerous species of birds, including raptors and waterfowl. The plains are also rich in agricultural resources, with vast areas dedicated to wheat, barley, and hay production. Cattle ranching is another significant industry, benefiting from the extensive grasslands. The climate of Montana varies significantly between these two regions. The western part of the state, influenced by the mountains, experiences cooler temperatures and higher precipitation, particularly in the form of snow during the winter months. In contrast, the eastern plains have a more continental climate, with hotter summers, colder winters, and less overall precipitation. This climatic variation further distinguishes the two regions and influences the types of vegetation and land use practices found in each area. Montana's split between the Rocky Mountains and the Great Plains creates a state of remarkable geographic diversity. This division not only shapes the physical landscape, but also impacts the state's economy, culture, and way of life. And it's this exact geography that has influenced where people live today. Montana does not have a large population. In fact, with only about 1.1 million people within a vast area of 147,000 square miles, Montana would rank 48th in terms of population density, just above Alaska and Wyoming. But within Montana, its population distribution is markedly uneven, with about 71%, or 779,000, residing in the western Rocky Mountains region of the state. And this is quite different from most states, where most people opt to live in flatter, more expansive areas. And of course, the geography of Montana is the primary reason for this. Historically, the westward expansion of the United States played a significant role in shaping settlement patterns in Montana. The discovery of gold in the 1860s and subsequent mining boom attracted thousands of prospectors and settlers to the western part of the state. And unlike Colorado, whose gold rush was relatively near the eastern edge of the Rockies near where Denver would be founded, Montana's gold rush began near Drummond, well within the mountains. As such, towns like Helena, Butte, and Virginia City flourished as mining centers well within the Rocky Mountain region of the state. The Northern Pacific Railway, completed in the 1880s, further boosted the western economy by providing critical transportation links for people and goods, facilitating the development of communities along the route. And because of this initial population rush, the western half of Montana created diversified industries that supported larger populations. The presence of rich mineral resources led to the growth of mining towns. And while mining remains important, the region also developed robust sectors in forestry and now tourism. Cities like Missoula and Bozeman have become educational and cultural hubs thanks to the University of Montana and Montana State University. These institutions not only provide employment opportunities, but also attract students, researchers, and professionals from across the country, contributing to the population concentration in the West. Today, the natural environment of western Montana, with its scenic landscapes and favorable climate, is another major factor in drawing people to the region. The Rocky Mountains offer recreational opportunities year-round, including hiking, skiing, fishing, and camping. National parks like Glacier National Park and Yellowstone National Park's Northern Gateway provide stunning vistas and attract millions of tourists annually. The appeal of outdoor activities and the lifestyle associated with mountain living is a strong magnet for residents and newcomers alike. Additionally, the more temperate climate in the western valleys, compared to the harsher conditions of the eastern plains, makes the area more attractive for living. Which leads us to the eastern half of Montana and its relatively low population. This area is characterized by the vast Great Plains, which presents unique challenges for population growth. The region's economy is heavily reliant on agriculture and cattle ranching, which require large expanses of land but employ relatively few people. And while this area does have lots of agriculture, it's also geographically complex in that it gets very cold, but doesn't have a lot of rain. If you've ever heard of an area where it can be snowing in the morning and 80 degrees by the afternoon, it's probably here. But beyond the weather and climate, recall that the Lakota, Sioux, and Cheyenne tribes put up some of the fiercest resistance in all of the western United States. These tribes actively fought and won battles against the US military, and this had a dampening effect on creating settlements in areas that were wide open and not easily defensible. So for example, a city along the Missouri River, such as Kansas City in Missouri, was never really able to form in Montana in the same way or capacity. This led to fewer settlements that were more spread out, which likely wouldn't have attracted the attention of the indigenous tribes who were trying to fend off larger military forces. Today, Montana's largest metropolitan region would be Billings in eastern Montana, with about 191,000 people. But that's basically it for major urbanized areas in the east. In the western Rocky Mountains half of the state, the largest metro regions would be Missoula with 127,000 people, Bozeman with 126,000, Kalispell with 113,000, Helena with 96,000, and Great Falls with 85,000 people. But lost in all of this conversation about population and geography is Montana's unique border with Idaho. If you didn't notice, it's unlike any other state border in the country. The Montana-Idaho border stands out as a unique feature among US state borders due to the fact that it's not a straight line, nor does it follow a river or coastline. This peculiar boundary was established during the 1800s amid the westward expansion and territorial organization of the United States. The origin of this unusual border can be traced back to the creation of the Oregon Territory in 1848, which included present-day Idaho, Montana, Oregon, and Washington. As the population grew and demands for separate governance increased, the Oregon Territory was divided. The Washington Territory was established in 1853, encompassing parts of Idaho and Montana. Later, in 1863, the Idaho Territory was created, initially including all of present-day Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming. The Montana Territory was formed in 1864, carving out Montana's present boundaries from the larger Idaho Territory. When these territories were delineated, the aim was to follow natural geographic features such as mountain ranges and rivers, as well as to consider existing settlements and economic regions. The Continental Divide, which runs through the Rocky Mountains, became a significant determining factor. The decision to create a distinct territorial identity for Montana and Idaho led to the establishment of the narrow strip of land now known as the Idaho Panhandle. This panhandle extends northward, bounded by Montana to the east and Washington to the west, creating a long, thin section of Idaho that stretches up to the Canadian border. The decision to draw the border this way was influenced by the need to balance the populations and ensure both territories had access to key resources and transportation routes. Additionally, the rugged terrain of the Rocky Mountains provided a natural, albeit irregular, boundary. Unlike many state borders in the United States that follow straight lines, latitude and longitude coordinates, rivers, or coastlines, the Montana-Idaho border instead mostly relies on the logical pathway of mountains and the Continental Divide to do the heavy lifting. Montana is a Rocky Mountain state, but it's also a prairie state. And these two halves are very different from each other with little connection between them. And that makes Montana quite unique amongst every other state in the country. Do you love Montana? If so, one of these maps would be the perfect thing that showcases that love around your house. I really enjoyed learning all about Montana this week. Feel free to check out some of my other content if you want more. Thank you to my editor, animator, and production assistant for helping me pull together today's video.